The 2025 Philadelphia Eagles offense has finally found their identity, and they need to lean into it against the Green Bay Packers.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Welcome in, Eagles fans, to this Wednesday edition of the show. I'm your host, Louie DiBiase, and we are brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you're going to get $300 back in bonus bets to use across the entire app. Eagles-Packers Monday Night Football, a battle between two of the top teams in the NFC. I'm going to dive deeper into that matchup on Crossover Thursday tomorrow with Locked On Packers host Peter Bukowski. Got today's shows for you. Friday as well, a live squad show tomorrow. We've got 7 to 8 shows a week on Locked On Eagles, so make sure you subscribe on all podcast platforms and on YouTube as well. I do think the Eagles, before the bye week, finally figured out who they are on the offensive side of the football. Offensive coordinator and play caller Kevin Patullo, head coach Nick Sirianni, even to a degree quarterback Jalen Hurts. Feels like they finally figured out what they do best, and they leaned into that to get back-to-back wins over the Minnesota Vikings and the New York Giants. Now, I think sometimes the identity talk, people put too much emphasis on it, and they take it a little bit too far. Like when you're an offense like the Philadelphia Eagles that has talent everywhere, elite offensive linemen, an elite quarterback, an elite running back, elite pass catchers at receiver and tight end, the identity talk feels too one-track minded. It feels too black and white. I don't want to be just one kind of thing on offense when you can do it all. I want the Eagles' offensive identity to be that they don't really have an identity. Their identity is that they can do whatever they want. It's multiple. If they want to throw the ball to win, they can do it. If they want to run the football to win, they can do it. If they want to lean on their offensive line or their quarterback, their running back, their receivers, they have the ability to do all of that. If they want to lean on their play caller, they have that kind of strength as well. And I do think the Eagles are built to be that kind of offense. So sometimes I think people take it too far where they say they have to find their identity this year. But I will say at the same time, you do want to find your strengths and weaknesses. You do want to lean into things that you do best when it comes to play calls, certain personnel packages, in the red zone. And I do think the Eagles offense has kind of found that quote unquote identity from a schematic standpoint for what these players are the most comfortable with this year in 2025. What has worked the most for them this year? I do think the Eagles are able to tap into that against the Vikings and the Giants. And we've talked about it in the show over the last couple of weeks. This team playing under center, using play action, using heavy packages with their offensive linemen, having 6+ guys out there on the line of scrimmage, using a guy like Fred Johnson as that 6th lineman to kind of overcompensate for not really having a great 12 personnel package, not really having a legitimate number 2 tight end you can have out there, using outside zone run schemes. Like that is who the Eagles are in 2025. That's what they are most comfortable doing. And I think against the Green Bay Packers, it's especially important that Nick Sirianni and Kevin Patullo stay disciplined and not kind of reverting back to their old ways and doing what they're comfortable with, going back to the shotgun, running back draws right up the middle. The RPO game has definitely been working over the last couple of weeks, but not overusing that as well. I do think maximizing the strengths of your players, doing what they're comfortable doing on offense is an important part of success. And Jalen Hurts normally is comfortable playing in the shotgun, using the RPO game. But at the same time, the offense needs to evolve. You kind of need to force your personnel to evolve, to stay ahead of the curve, to stay ahead of defenses. And it really looks like Jalen Hurts and the whole personnel on offense are comfortable with this under center look. It's really tapped into, and I think allowed the Eagles to revive their vertical passing game, the quick passing game as well over the middle of the field, run after the catch ability for these weapons, getting them more opportunities in the screen game. The screen game has finally worked over the last few weeks. I thought it revived the run game as well against the Giants. They need to lean into that against the Green Bay Packers. Last year, I feel like there were times that they were an under center offense in the middle of the season, and it worked all the time. And then they just kind of stopped doing it. And it obviously didn't hurt the Eagles offense all that much. But I will say the Eagles passing game was very inconsistent last year. And I think if they played more under center, it might have been more consistent. So I just hope they don't, with big matchups coming up against the Green Bay Packers and the Detroit Lions, I hope they continue to try to evolve as this new under center kind of offense, because people are expecting you to be something different. And this is clearly working. When before this 2-game win streak, the shotgun offense wasn't really working for the passing game or for the running game. And you're going to use shotgun a lot still, but I kind of like this old school, almost like what the Tennessee Titans did really well with Ryan Tannehill, Derrick Henry, and A.J. Brown in 2019 when they made the AFC Championship. I kind of like that that's who the Eagles are, because it tends to have success in the NFL when you run this style of offense, especially when you have good personnel. And I think it's working right now with the way that deep modern day defenses are playing, and especially how defenses are playing you. So I want to see them use that against the Green Bay Packers, which is a very talented defense with Micah Parsons and Rashawn Gary up front, Edgerrin Cooper and Quay Walker at linebacker. It's a very talented read and react defense that really flies around the football, and getting that under center, misdirection, play action, heavy offensive line packages. I think that is the blueprint to continue winning against these better teams that you've got coming up on a really tough schedule, including these next 2 games, which are so crucial to get the 1 seed in the NFC. Green Bay Packers on Monday night, then taking on the Detroit Lions as well. So for me, coming out the bye, and normally Nick Sirianni, Kevin Patullo, this Eagles coaching staff, when they have time to prepare for a game, they're very good at maximizing that extended time, whether it's a season opener or a bye week or a long week off because of a Thursday night game they played or a primetime game, allowing them to have an extended time off. This coaching staff is really good at maximizing that window to prepare for the next matchup. And I hope that what they came away with these last 2 games in this bye week is that they should continue to lean into what has gotten them these last 2 wins, and maybe even evolve off of that and add some new wrinkles to what they've been doing under center, hopefully against the Green Bay Packers. The Eagles, that the proof is in the pudding with what they do when they have time to prepare. The Eagles are 6-1 under Nick Sirianni when they have at least 11 days of rest between games. They're 11-1 total if you also include season openers. So I think they found their identity for 2025, and against the Packers, I think this is the perfect matchup to continue to lean into that identity. Coming up next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast, the Eagles are halfway through the 2025 season. Predictions for the second half coming up right here on Locked On Eagles. Today's episode of the Locked On Eagles podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a much bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is making that late season push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thanks as always for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. The Eagles are 6-2 coming off the bye, heading to Lambeau next Monday night to take on the Packers, who right now, record-wise, top 4 team in the NFC. Somebody you could see yet again in the playoffs in January for the second straight year. A really big matchup. 8 games down, 9 to go. It's incredible we're already this deep into the 2025 season, but here we are. Football season always flies by. Enjoy the ride, and it's going to be a really intense stretch when you look at who the Eagles have left on their schedule. Some second half season predictions coming up right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast. And I want to start on the offensive side of the football. Something that I predict that we're going to see more of on offense is the use of Jalen Hurts as a designed runner. I think you're going to see Kevin Patullo, Nick Sirianni start to be a little bit more comfortable. I don't want to say take the training wheels off, but kind of take the straitjacket off Jalen Hurts as a runner. Now, Jalen Hurts has been a very effective running quarterback this year when it comes to the scramble drill. When plays break down, he's been able to get outside of the pocket, make plays happen with his legs, whether he's running or using his legs to open up the pass. He, of course, is still the best short yardage running quarterback in the NFL with tush-push plays in the red zone, third and fourth and short. Like, Jalen Hurts is the go-to guy at this position in those areas. But when you look at Jalen's rushing production this year, it's really all been either the scramble drill or the tush-push. And I think that's by design. The Eagles feel like they can win games the first half of the year without using Jalen Hurts as a design runner. They want to keep him upright, healthy. They don't want him to miss any games. I feel like that's a pretty smart approach. Jalen Hurts normally as well is a pretty safe, takes care of his body kind of running quarterback on the field. He is not the reckless player that we used to see with Michael Vick and Carson Wentz, or you see in the NFC East with somebody like Jackson Dart, who's just completely throwing his body around. Normally, Jalen Hurts this year, especially early on in the season, is a pretty conservative runner. He takes the yards he can get, but doesn't really fight for more unless it's a really important moment, a big spot in a game. He's pretty good at picking and choosing his spots. But I will say, as the year goes on, as these games get more and more important, the playoffs get closer, the race for the 1 seed continues, I do think you'll see the Eagles. I'm not suddenly predicting that Jalen Hurts is going to have like 10 designed runs every single game, but I think some more QB draws with a pulling guard as his lead blocker up the middle. I love that play design, especially in the red zone. Some counter reads, some triple option plays, maybe even as well. Some read options, RPOs. You're going to see more of that where Jalen Hurts can be used as a design runner. I think that's going to be something that you can expect more the second half of the season. And I think it is something that you should see more of that can help the Eagles become more of a consistent rushing offense. Because when Jalen Hurts is part of the run game and you can play kind of 12 on 10 with your running offense, it makes it really hard to defend them as a defense. So that's something I definitely predict you will see the second half of the year. Another thing I predict, although he's had a slow start to the year and there's been a lot of drama surrounding A.J. Brown, only 395 receiving yards this year, I do still predict by the end of the year that Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown will eclipse 1,000 receiving yards like they did in 2022, like they did in 2023. Remember, there's still 9 games. A.J. Brown has had a couple monster performances against the Rams and the Vikings. I think you're going to see multiple 100-yard performances still from number 11. If you look at the Eagles' passing game, it's getting far more consistent over the last 2 weeks. And A.J. Brown, honestly, you talk about the Eagles' new offensive identity as an under center, play action passing unit. That's how he was utilized and really succeeded his first couple years in the NFL with the Tennessee Titans, was as a receiver that, you know, they used over the middle of the field on these drag routes, these crossers, getting him over the middle in space, off the play action, feeding off of Derrick Henry. That's how A.J. Brown made his money. That was his bread and butter early on in his career. He's a very underrated run after the catch player that's very hard to take down. And I feel like that's probably the biggest part of Brown's game that since he came to Philadelphia hasn't been utilized as much. Again, he was more of a short yardage run after the catch guy with Tennessee. And in Philadelphia, he's been more of the deep threat, more traditional outside X receiver you use for back shoulder plays, contested catches. I think with the way they're playing offense right now, Brown can really be a plus, and he can really add on to what he can help you build off of what you were doing well against the Giants and just add another wrinkle to it with an elite talent that's played in this kind of offense before. in the AFC South of the Tennessee Titans. So I still predict that A.J. Brown is going to get to 1,000 yards for the fourth year in a row with the Eagles. And Devontae Smith, he's on pace for over 1,200 yards, and I think he will finish with 1,200 plus. I think he'll lead the Eagles in receiving yards this year, and I think he's going to cap off an all-pro season down the stretch over these final 9 games. One final prediction for the offense. Dallas Goedert, who already has 7 receiving touchdowns this year, I think he'll finish with at least 12, if not more. So to reach that stat, to reach that number, he's going to have at least 5 more touchdowns this year through 9 games. Now, that's not going to be easy. Sustaining the pace he's on right now will be tough in an offense that has so many weapons. Of course, Dallas Goedert also has a pretty lengthy, extensive injury history. But I do think with how well Kevin Patullo is scheming him up in the red zone, how much Jalen Hurts looks his way when they get inside the 20, I really think Goddard's going to do it. I think he's going to get at least to 10. I think he'll get to 12 plus. And if you want to combine the playoffs, maybe you say that's cheating, but Dallas Goedert is such a clutch playoff performer as well that he's going to score in the postseason too. They're going to continue to make him a go-to player in the red zone. I think also, kind of like with A.J. Brown, the way they're throwing the football right now fits Dallas Goedert's skill set too. So I'm going to predict that the touchdown pace continues. Maybe he doesn't get another seven or more the final 9 games of the year, but I think he gets at least 5 more touchdowns and he finishes the season with 12 or more and earns a massive payday this offseason by either the Eagles or somebody in that unrestricted free agent pool. Some defensive predictions. On the defensive line, he's starting to break out, get his legs underneath him, be the dominant player we're used to seeing, especially in 2024. I predict that Jalen Carter will lead the Eagles in sacks down the stretch over these final 9 games. Carter, because of injuries, because of conditioning, because he was suspended in the first game of the year for spitting on Dak Prescott, hasn't had the first half of the season that we expected him to. I thought really after the playoff run that he had in 2024, winning a Super Bowl, making like the play of the year, sacking Matt Stafford in the divisional round to win the game and get into the NFC title. I really thought he was going to build off of that and have an Aaron Donald kind of season, or like what Fletcher Cox did in 2018, where it didn't matter if you threw double teams his way. He was just unstoppable. And you're starting to see that version of Jalen Carter come back. You saw that against the Vikings. He's the one that forced the pick 6 to Jalen Hunt, destroying Carson Wentz on a play. You saw him get his first sack of the season against the Giants. He's starting to heat up. All the attention can't go to Jalen Carter now that they're bringing in reinforcements on the edge with Jalen Phillips, and Brandon Graham is back. Nolan Smith is back. Jalen Hunt is getting better and better. Josh Uche has been a very underrated piece to the defensive line. Jordan Davis and Moro Ijoma have 7 sacks combined. So I think Carter, like, you can't just have 2 to 3 offensive linemen on number 98 at all times. And I think he's the best one-on-one defensive tackle in all of football. He's just completely unguardable if it's one-on-one. So I think down the stretch, these final 9 games, Jalen Carter is going to lead the entire Eagles defensive line in sacks. On the edge, though, I know Nolan Smith is coming back. I know they just traded for Jalen Phillips. But the way Jalen Hunt is playing, I predict that he is going to lead the edge group in sacks the rest of the way. Now, I do think that he'll be outsnapped by both Jalen Phillips and Nolan Smith. But remember, Jalen Hunt leads the Eagles in pressures right now on the edge. He's had an incredible 2-game stretch against Minnesota and New York. I think he's going to start turning those pressures into sacks. He got his first one against the Giants, kind of like Jalen Carter. I think the sacks are going to start to come. The pressures are going to turn into sacks more. You're deeper on the edge. Jalen is my pick to lead the edge group in sacks the rest of the way. My final defensive prediction for the second half of the year, rookie safety Drew Makuba has at least 4 interceptions this year, if not more. He's already got 2 this season, 1 against the Chiefs, 1 against the Minnesota Vikings. I think he'll have 2 to 3 more interceptions, continue to be the best playmaker in the backfield of the Eagles secondary over Reed Blankenship. Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean are having all-pro seasons, but Neither guy has an interception yet. I think Drew Makuba has done a great job replacing C.J. Gardner-Johnson in the playmaking department, and I do think he at least gets a couple more interceptions. His ball tracking ability this year, his playmaking instinct, I think it's apparent that the Eagles chose him out of Clemson for a reason in the second round to replace the style of player that CJ Gardner-Johnson was. And I think he'll be somebody that I don't think he'll win Rookie of the Year, but because of his interception numbers, he'll have 4 or more. I think he'll be in the running for sure. I think he'll be in the running. All right, guys, we're going to wrap up this edition of Locked On Eagles. Coming up next, I think there's a chance that Howie Roseman trades for a massive name in the NFL this offseason that he tried to get at the deadline. I'll tell you why coming up right here on Locked On Eagles. Today's episode of the Locked On Eagles podcast, we are brought to you by Built. Nobody likes paying rent, but if you must, you might as well get something for it. That's where Built comes in. Built is changing the game by turning your rent payments into real rewards that you can actually use. When you pay rent through Built, you earn flexible points that can be redeemed towards hundreds of hotels and airlines, a future rent payment, your next Lyft ride, and more. But Built isn't just about rent, it's about rewarding you around your neighborhood. I love that with Built, you finally get rewarded for paying rent. You're earning points every month on something that you already have to pay. Whether you're grabbing food at a favorite local restaurant or heading to the gym, you're still earning rewards. Built has made everyday life feel more rewarding, from your neighborhood to your travel plans. Turn your rent into rewards and start earning points around your neighborhood by going to joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNFL. That's joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNFL. Make sure to use the link so they know that we sent you. Thanks as always for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Guys, make sure your second listen is the Locked On NFL podcast. 2 episodes a day, Monday through Friday. My guy Tyler, the Madman Roland, gets you started in the morning with a shot of football espresso. Tony Wiggins, the barber, takes you into the barbershop in the afternoon to talk shop, to talk ball. 2 episodes a day, Monday through Friday. Make it your second listen. You can get it wherever you get Locked On Eagles, on all audio platforms and on YouTube as well. So Howie Roseman met with the media yesterday after the conclusion of the 2025 NFL trade deadline, talking about the Jalen Phillips trade, talking about the return of Brandon Graham, just his overall philosophy when it comes to trading draft picks, collecting picks, making trades for the short term, balancing that with the future plans of this core. A lot of interesting stuff when Howie Roseman talks to the media. It doesn't happen a lot, only a couple times a year. One thing that was really interesting that he said at the end of his press conference was, and of course he joked around about getting caught tampering, like don't get him in trouble, because he was asked directly if he tried to trade for Micah Parsons before the season started, and then if he tried to trade for Myles Garrett before the deadline. He gave a smirk. And then when he was asked, just generally speaking, about trading for stars like that, he said they're always going to try. Like, you can't be afraid of failure, or you're not going to have confetti falling on your head. They're always going to take risks to try to improve the Eagles roster. And if they miss, so be it. They will continue to try to improve and fix mistakes that they made along the way. But yeah, like, they're going to take big swings if they know it can help them win a Super Bowl. And Howie Roseman has that flexibility when he has an owner like Jeffrey Lurie that continues to front the bill. Now, if he trades for somebody like Myles Garrett at any point, Lurie might have to, sell another a percentage of this franchise to get some more liquid cash, because Myles Garrett's contract is a historic one where he's getting paid over $40 million a year. And the Eagles have a very high payroll already on this roster. But I will say, I don't think it's out of the question that this isn't the last time we hear of Howie Roseman trying to poach Myles Garrett from Cleveland. I think there's a lot of seasons where Howie's been linked to somebody, he's been linked to a player, whether it's a prospect that he liked or a free agent signing that he missed out on, or somebody that maybe he was rumored to try to trade for, but for one reason or another, a deal didn't get done. And then 6 months later, a year goes by, maybe a couple seasons go by, and then boom, that player ends up in Philadelphia. And you're like, yeah, he always liked him. He always kept tabs on this player. And here he is walking in the door. I feel like that happens all of the time with this organization. Again, a prospect they like that they just couldn't get, and now they bring him in on a second contract, or they trade for him because it's just not the right fit with the team that originally drafted him. Like, that happens a lot. And Myles Garrett is somebody I think that could be that missing piece, that final Jenga piece on this Eagles defense that'll put them over the top of really becoming a dynasty. I think he's going to try again at some point. Right now, it feels a little bit too soon still because the Browns just extended him in the summer to that historic contract. But the older Myles Garrett gets, even if he stays productive, if the Cleveland Browns remain a rebuilding football team, Myles Garrett continues to get more and more frustrated and wants to eventually win. And a team like the Eagles will take on a lot of or most of that salary from Garrett's contract. I think Cleveland will be eventually willing to dance. I think they'll be willing to play ball a little bit on a Garrett trade. And I think the Eagles make the most sense because they've clearly been interested over the last year. They have more ammunition than anybody in the NFL. It's a position that they value and they need long term. Jalen Phillips, a free agent this year. Brandon Graham's not going to be back after this season. Josh Uche is a free agent after this year, probably going to get a nice payday, or at least a raise from what he got from the Eagles this year. So they have Nolan Smith and Jalix Hunt, but imagine Myles Garrett on this defense next to Jalen Carter. I think Howie Roseman is salivating at that idea. Excuse me. I'm already getting choked up. Thinking about it. So I don't think this will be the last time that you hear the Eagles linked to Myles Garrett. Again, I'm not predicting that it's going to happen like right when the season ends, but before next year's trade deadline, I can't see Myles Garrett still being in Cleveland. And I think personally he should have just demanded a trade like he did last offseason and stuck to it, even though the Browns showed him the money. When you look at what he would have got in Philadelphia or another market, like, yeah, Cleveland gave him all-time money, but another team would have done exactly the same thing. He could have made obviously more in Cleveland, but it was like, what, 3 to 5 million more than what he could have got with a Super Bowl contender. I think he realizes that, and he's going to be able to have his cake and eat it too at some point. And I really do think that the way Howie Roseman was talking in that press conference, he totally, without saying it because he's not allowed to admit it with tampering rules, but he absolutely tried to trade for Myles Garrett. He absolutely called up Cleveland and Andrew Berry. He absolutely called up Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys. Both teams probably scoffed at him at this point, but he's big game hunting. He doesn't always do that. Like, a Howie Roseman move typically is not the blockbuster trading for the best player in the league kind of move. Like, that's what he did with AJ Brown in 2022. But outside of that, like, he likes the value trade of bringing in a young, inexpensive player on a rookie deal that's fallen out of favor with a team, but thinks he can still get that ceiling in a better situation out of that player. But I will say, if he feels like it's the missing piece and they're like one piece away from being a complete roster again that will be the Super Bowl favorite, he will do it. That's what happened with AJ Brown. It has to be the right player at the right time. And I think next year with Myles Garrett, it will be the right player at the right time. We'll see what happens. Let me know what you think. Hit us up on X at LockdownBirds and at DBLC LOE. Until tomorrow, thanks as always for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Thanks as always for downloading, watching, and listening. And let's go Birds. Fly, Eagles, fly.